everyone. Ashley Jones here for this week's Software Success. So excited to be here as usual. You guys know me. I absolutely love software. Cannot live my embroidery life without it. And today we are talking freestanding lace. So tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing who all is here and joining. Tell me if you are a lover of freestanding lace. Do you like stitching it? What kind of things do you like to stitch with freestanding lace? You guys know us here. We love our software. So I'm going to be using our My Lace Maker program to show you how you can create custom lace. As always, some of the features that I'm showing are specific to freestanding lace and in My Lace Maker. But some of the things that we'll be talking about are things that you can use throughout all of Dime's software if they have that particular feature. So make sure that you tell me where you're watching from. And like I said, if you love stitching freestanding lace. So let's see. I did see before we ever even started, Marjorie Hirschberger. She's from Lancaster, PA. Thanks for joining, Marjorie. She's a regular here at Dime Software Success and Between Friends. And so she said she is getting ready to make some 3D flowers to place on a hat for the Kentucky Derby. I love that. And I think that's a great use of freestanding lace for sure. So I was able to go to Kentucky Derby years ago. Such a fun giant party for sure. So thank you for joining, Marjorie, and thank you for that information. So Marie from Western Wisconsin, thank you for joining. And we have Tracy Edwards from Scottsdale, Arizona, sunny Scottsdale, and our friend Dawn from Creative Appliques. Thanks for joining, Dawn, as well. And Robin says winter's back, and she's near Pittsburgh, mouth twister there, tongue twister there, Pennsylvania. So, Robin, do you like the winter, or are you wishing that it would move on to summer? And so I definitely love the snow. We travel to the snow, but you know, I really love the warm too. So Marie from West Texas, thanks for being here, Marie. We've got Lincoln, Nebraska, Tipton, my words are not coming today. Indiana, Tucson, Arizona, and Illinois. Thanks for joining, Laurie. She's actually part of our education team here. Thank you so much for being here, Laurie. It's always a pleasure to see you. And then Marie says she's been machine embroidery for many years and she's done some lace. She's interested to know what has changed. So good question. I'm sure a lot of it's the same, but we just have a lot easier time creating it. So from very cold Michigan, Brenda. Southern Illinois, I see Minnesota, Central Texas, Reen Wilcoxon of Embroidery Gardens. Thanks for joining, Reen. I'm so excited to have you here too. And then Diana from Colorado. Tons of people. Ocala, Florida, also here. So I'm in nice sunny Florida as well, Oregon. So thanks everybody for joining. So I do love stitching freestanding lace. So Tammy, thanks for joining, Tammy. She's also part of our education team here. Love to see our ladies here. They're also great at answering questions too. So, Central Wisconsin. So freestanding lace. So if you haven't stitched it before, which I'm assuming a good majority of you guys have, it's really simple to do. And I love stitching freestanding lace because it is easy. You stitch thread and stabilizer, and that's it. You don't normally stitch it on something else, although you can, but it's just really fun, and it's kind of stress-free because you're not putting it on another item. And then Diana Norman said that she bought the My Lace Maker a few years ago. Haven't done anything yet. Oh, Diana, you're going to love today. So I think you'll be excited. So Sue, plan to make a lace trim for a junk journal. I love that. Great idea. Great idea. So Amy says, hello from Wilmette Valley in Oregon. And she had software years ago. Haven't had the opportunity to use it. So seems like a common theme. So I think you guys will be excited. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. I will just mention one thing. If you're new to Software Success Facebook Live, we are live, I should say, because it is on YouTube and Facebook. Make sure when you ask a question, if you need an answer, put like 3 question marks before you start typing, because then it'll help me pick it out of the lineup if there's a lot of comments moving. I like to try to answer every question. And also, too, if there's a question asked just as I'm ending, I do try to go over and answer that on either Facebook or YouTube. So if you ask a question and we're ending the presentation, look there. I do try to make sure I answer all those. So thanks for joining. So Savannah, Texas. I didn't even know there was a Savannah, Texas. I've lived in Savannah, Georgia years ago. That's pretty cool to see that there's a Savannah, Texas. So thanks for joining, Linda. That's awesome. Okay, so My Lace Maker is the program that we're talking about today. This is a software from Dime that you would install on your computer, and it makes creating custom freestanding lace so simple. I mean, really simple. If you have ever stitched freestanding lace, then you know that it has a foundation that holds all of those stitches together. And without that, you would have stitches that possibly fell apart once you stitched on that water soluble and rinsed it away. So freestanding lace, if you haven't ever stitched it, you just hoop a piece of water soluble stabilizer. And there is a water soluble stabilizer out there that looks like a woven fabric. So that's much sturdier than the clear plastic one. So you stitch your design on that. And when you rinse it, you're left with nothing but your stitches. If the design is not meant for freestanding lace, then your stitches could possibly unravel, similar to a sweater, so that you they don't stay together. So you want to make sure that you're using a design that is meant for freestanding lace. So in our software, My Lace Maker, I'm not kidding. This is one of the easiest Dime software to use. It is as simple as 1, 2, 3. No joke. 1, 2, 3. First, click on the icon to choose a shape that you want to turn into freestanding lace. And then your step number 2 is that you fill that shape with the lace grid. And you'll see all of this. The lace grid holds everything together. And then step number 3 is to decorate it, to add some fancier elements to it for your freestanding lace. And we're going to do these 3 steps and make several different things today. And you can see exactly the process. Now, this program is specifically designed for freestanding lace, so that you don't have to know how to digitize, and you can create freestanding lace of any shape and any form using the built-in feature. So let me head over there and we'll get started. So as I go, don't forget, if you have questions, ask in the chat. I'm happy to answer, and I will watch for those, and we'll break a couple times between here. But let's start with the very basics. If you have never used My Lace Maker, these 3 steps are going to get you started. So the first thing you want to do is choose a shape. So I'm going to go here to this icon called Lace Frames. Now you can import a shape from outside of the software, which we'll actually go over in 2 weeks. But I'm going to just work with the built-in shapes at this point. So in the shapes here, you can see we've got, quite a few options for you to choose from. You just select your shape, and then we're going to turn that into lace. Lots of fun things to do for the holidays, and some home things, and just all kinds of general shapes. And again, you can bring in some of your own, and we'll see that in a couple of weeks. So let's go back, and I'm just going to work with this butterfly. This is one of my favorite designs to show because it's so simple and it makes a really cute design. So I've chosen my shape. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is to fill that shape with the lace grid. So you have 2 options for a lace grid. You can have the grid without a border. So you click that button and it just dumps that into your shape. You can also have the grid with a border, and that adds a satin stitch all the way around your design. Now, if you were to save this design right now, it would stitch out and it would be freestanding. Once you rinsed away your stabilizer, you would be left with just this butterfly design, and it is freestanding. So that grid is what holds everything together. It is specifically digitized so that it doesn't stop and start anywhere where you're going to have any issues. So it's all done so that it will stay together. So that was my slow redraw that I'm watching. When you click the slow redraw, you can drag this slider here and it'll show you how it's going to stitch out. So that grid is the foundation of everything that we're going to do. Now, I'm going to make that a lighter color, and this is the same way that you would do this in any dime software. When you select down on your color chips below, I'm going to do a right mouse click on the number 18 that's on my toolbar or on my color bar, and it'll turn that to a lighter color. That's why when I bring in my other pieces, you'll be able to see what we're working with. So, and actually, I'm going to do an undo before I do that because I just want the grid. I don't want the border for this example, and we'll use the border for another one. So then I'm going to select that and do a right mouse click again there. Now let's then decorate it. That's step number 3, is to decorate this. So I'm going to go in to my lace design. So the first icon on the second row, if I click that, I have a library of designs and elements that are freestanding. I can combine these with different designs. I can use them individually if I want. It's really entirely up to you. So we're going to use them to decorate our butterfly. But take a look here. So we've got all of these different categories, and a lot of these are, really long categories. If I scroll down, you can see we've got tons of options here. So this dark design is actually a full lace element, and all of these individual pieces are the design elements that make up this one large piece. So what we've done here is given you all of these elements so that you can build your own if you prefer. But there are some really cool designs in these categories. I'll just choose one to show you, like this particular design, or we'll do this one. When it comes in, you can see that's a beautiful floral design that's all as one lace design. So you could just stitch that out. It's ready to go. So I'm going to remove that from my screen because we're not going to be using that on our butterfly. But I want to point out these elements here. If you select those separately and open them up, you will recognize that they're parts of this design. So that's the difference in the colors here between those two designs. Now, I'll give you another tip that is, I know a lot of people with their lace designs, they wish that they were bigger. They think that it's hard to see them in these little spots here. So this actually is a tip for all dime embroidery software that has a catalog of this sort. If you do a right mouse click on that design library and say show contents, it'll actually take you to the folder location where you have those designs. So I'm going to open up the classic lace here, and then I'm going to turn my view. If you have Perfect Stitch Viewer, remember this, if you have Perfect Stitch Viewer, you can see those as a little bit larger images. So remember, Perfect Stitch Viewer is the program that turns my designs in my file folder to images. So this is an easier way to see those elements. Okay, so just a little tip there. And that does work for other dime software too. So if you have other pieces of software, you can view the catalog that way. Okay, so now let's choose a few elements to put on our butterfly. So I'm going to select this one here, and I'm going to hold down my control key so that I can select multiple elements. So when I hold down the control key, you can see I've got 2 highlighted, and then I'm going to highlight a third one here and click OK. I like to put several elements on my workspace because this program is kind of like putting a puzzle together. I like to select elements that I think will work in my design, and then I play with them, I position them. If they don't work for what I need, I can just delete them and go add more. So these 3 elements I use in this design, so I know they will work. And so let's start with this one. I'm going to mirror image this design here, and I'm going to make it fit right here along the top of this wing. So I'm just going to kind of rotate it. Now remember, if I've got a little bit of my grid exposed, that's no big deal because it is going to still hold together. I don't have to worry about it falling apart. So I'm going to slide this one over. Now look at that jerky motion. So whenever I slide this, it kind of starts to jerk. That's because I have my snap to guidelines or anchor points. I don't have a guideline on the screen, so it's the anchor points that's doing this. So I'm going to uncheck that. So to get to that, if you do a right mouse click on your ruler bar, and this is a tip for all dime software, not just My Lace Maker, do a right mouse click and you can convert, or you can easily switch between metric and inches. Also, I've got grid settings here and then my snap to grid option. So if you turn off the snap to grid or turn it on, it'll just help you with alignment easy. In this case, I don't want it to pull on my design. I want to put it where I want. And you can see now whenever I move this, it's much smoother because it's not trying to snap to those anchor points. So I'm going to place that one there. And then let's grab this last design here. And I'm going to put that one along here. Now, remember what I'm doing is I'm selecting the design. I'm using this pink circle on the corner to rotate. When I hover my mouse over that pink circle, it turns to that circle with the two-headed arrow, and that lets me know that it's ready for rotate. Whereas when I move my cursor in, you can see that it changes. And so that is a double-headed arrow, which is letting me know that I can pull that corner to resize. So let me do that again. So you can see my double-headed arrow there, and then I can resize. All of these lace elements, yes, you can resize them. They are built into the software in our native formats. So resizing works really well. So you can click and drag and make that any size you need it to be for your particular design. So I'm going to go back. Let's go back to our library because I want one more little piece down here below. And I'm going to stay in that classic lace category and scroll down. And when I'm looking for something, now I know what I'm looking for because I've done this design before, but I'm usually, have an idea of the look that I'm going for. So I usually use this design here, but let's see if this one will work. So I choose this and I'm going to rotate that around, and I want that to fit right here on my butterfly. Now, see how large that is? I certainly could resize it if I want, but really that one piece right here on the left is the piece that would work really well right there. So I'm going to press my delete key to get rid of that one, go back to my library, and then I'm just going to grab this piece because remember we have parts and pieces, so we can use those individual pieces. And then I'm just going to spin that around. And then when I hover my mouse, when it turns to the hand, that's what is going to let me grab that design. If it's not the hand, it's going to try to do something else. So if you're trying to move your design and it's doing something different, then just hover until you see the hand, and then it's ready for you to move it. Okay, so I've designed half of it. Now I could keep going here, and let me make this a little bit darker color. Let's switch it to this purple here. So I could keep going and put completely different elements on this side of my butterfly. But for this case, and just for the sake of time, I'm going to just select all of those pieces and I'm going to copy them and paste them in mirror image. Now, let me go over here to my sequence view. So what I just did, these pieces that are on my butterfly, they're all grouped together. So they were very easy for me to select. I held down my control key, and notice whenever I press control and I'm over top of a design, it puts a plus sign right behind my cursor, letting me know that it can select multiple items. So your cursor is really key to what's going on in your dime software, not just this one and all of them. So I'm going to hold it down continuously and just click on these designs. Now, sometimes when I'm clicking, it will select the grid or something behind. So if you're having trouble selecting those, you could always come over here to your sequence view. I just clicked on my sequence view down at the bottom right there, and I can hide this in order to select everything on the screen and then unhide it, or I could simply lock it. If I lock, it won't let me do anything. It won't let me select that. It won't let me change the color. It won't let me do anything. But that does allow me for the remaining elements that I can just drag a box around them to select them all at one time. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste up here on my toolbar, and then I'm going to mirror image so that I can put that on the opposite side. So just slide this out of the way. Now notice I did not click anything. After I did copy, paste, and mirror, I haven't touched anything. I haven't clicked or anything. So all four of those are still selected. So if I leave them selected like that, then that means I can rotate them all as a group. and I don't have to worry about one of them not being where I want it to be. So I can just slide that into position, and I think that looks pretty good. And so this side over here is not exactly identical. So I can move this up if I want just by selecting that one piece. And now I've got this cute little design that I could save and stitch this out. The grid that is shaped like a butterfly is going to hold all of these elements together so that they remain in the shape of a butterfly. So I'm going to unlock that, and then I'm going to hide it. If you were to build this design here, it would not stay in this shape. Although each of these elements here are all freestanding by themselves, if you stitch this and rinse away your stabilizer, you would have this flower here, this flower spray here, this little design here, all would be separate pieces. Our grid is maintaining that shape and holding all the elements together. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me show you one more thing right here, and then we'll answer some questions. And then I have another couple of designs, and I have a fun little Mother's Day design that I want to share with you that's really easy to create. So behind each of these designs is my lace grid. Now you do have the option of selecting the design and the grid together. Notice I've got that plus mark at the end of my cursor, and I can select the grid and that design. When I click the create hole here on my toolbar, it cuts out the grid from behind my design. Now you've got a little bit more open look, which is super cool, right? So I love that. Now the create hole works because these elements that are built into the software, I'm going to open up this plus here. In my sequence view, this one element here that kind of looks like a heart on the bottom, it's all grouped together, but I'm going to push the plus so that we can see the individual pieces of this design. Now, notice the last thing in the category here is a piece of artwork. To create the hole in the grid, the software uses the artwork to cut out that shape. If your design does not have an artwork shape in it, then you can create the artwork shape by using the create outline to be able to create that hole. But it's in mine and it's all grouped together. So I can select it. I can select the grid with my control key, and I can click that create hole to cut that from behind. And we're going to use that in another example. So I wanted you to understand that part about the artwork is what's making the hole. So really cool, right? So now all you need to do is save this. So file, save as, and remember your Dime software saves to a ton of different formats. So choose the format for your embroidery machine, put it on a USB stick or however you normally transfer, and then stitch this on water-soluble stabilizer. And then it's ready to be rinsed out, and you've got a really cool piece of freestanding lace, right? Okay, so let's see if we have any questions here, and I'll answer those before we go on to the next section. So I see here, Jay Ellis says, which type of the Dime hoops works best with freestanding lace, the magnetic or the sticky? So if you are stitching freestanding lace onto another item, I would say you could certainly use the magnetic hoop or the sticky hoop. The sticky hoop, if you're working on the corner, if you're stitching freestanding lace on the corner of, say, a napkin or a blanket or a table runner, things like that would work great. But if you're just stitching freestanding lace all by itself, then I use my standard hoop because you're only hooping stabilizer. If you want to use the magnetic hoop, I would recommend weaving some T-pins along the edge of the hoop to prevent it from pulling through the magnet. Freestanding lace has a lot of stitches in it, so you don't want your stabilizer to get pulled through your hoop there. So, and it's actually also a good idea to do that for more security on your standard hoop. So I love even doing that. Okay, so Sharon says, can you use other software? I don't want to buy another one. Sharon, I know what you mean, and we have a ton of different options. Now, creating freestanding lace, you can create in other programs. You may own one already that you can do that. Our Perfect Embroidery Pro has the ability to digitize anything. But for freestanding lace, you do need to understand how that works so that you have that grid that holds everything together. But you would need to manually do that. My Lace Maker is a software program from Dime that really, what we've done is put those features so that you don't have to digitize. You just click in order to create your lace. So that's what we've done here with this program. But you certainly can digitize freestanding lace in our Perfect Embroidery Pro if you'd like. So, and let's see if we have any other questions here. So Mary Kay Ellis says, does this program work with Embrilliance? So our Lace Maker software program, it is friendly for any brand of embroidery machine or other software. We do not conflict in any way. So if you have Embrilliance and you install My Lace Maker, they would work separately. When you want to do your freestanding lace, you would open your My Lace Maker to create that design. And then if you wanted to do something else, you could save that and open it in your other software. So absolutely. But it doesn't cause any kind of conflict in any way. So Chris Vick says, can the design lace elements be stitched on their own, like making earrings and pendants? Yes, they can. The elements that are in the library are freestanding, so you can stitch those individually to make all kinds of things. Absolutely. And I'm going to show you a couple of designs where you can overlap and you'll see exactly that as well. Let's see if we have any other questions here before we go on. I agree. Dawn says, wow, that is so easy. I definitely agree. It's one of our easiest software and all of the guesswork is taken out of it. I really love that. And then Sharon said, will the video be available later? Yes, it will, Sharon. If you go to Dime's YouTube channel and look for past lives, you will see the video link for this video after it's done airing live. You can watch, and we do this every other week-ish, first to the third Tuesday of the month, so you can watch the past ones as well. So Jan, hey Jan, says that, will it stitch on clear stabilizer from Dime or use the fabric type? I prefer the fabric type. You certainly, if you're using the heavy duty water soluble stabilizer from Dime, the one that we use for patches, would probably work, but really the woven kind is much more stable for all of these stitches. So that's your best choice, is to go with that stabilizer that is the woven type of water soluble. Really great question. And then Marjorie says, how many layers of stabilizer do you need to use? So Marjorie, that's kind of a tough question to answer. I would say it has a few things that depend on whether or not you use multiple layers. One of the things I look at, the more the stitches, if you do the 2 layers, it'll just help your design stay together a little bit better, because if it's pulling too much on your stabilizer, just like a regular design, freestanding lace designs can be off in registration. And by that, I mean outlines might not line up. And it's crucial with freestanding lace because your outline might get dissolved. So you want to make sure that you don't have your stabilizer pulling through too much on your hoop. If you are stitching a lot of little things, like say you have a 5x7 hoop and you're doing 6 little miniature freestanding lace flowers, I also would do those with 2 layers, because in between your 2 designs, a lot of times will pull. If you just have one design that's not that big and lower stitch count, you can get away with 1 layer, but 2 layers is really going to be kind of a fail safe. So maybe do that. So thanks for joining Joanne from Let's Go Show. So Joanne Banco, you guys know her. So it does make it easy. It definitely does, Joanne. I totally agree with you. And then Sharon says that, can you use fabric glue to attach the freestanding lace to clothing? Absolutely. You can sew it on with your sewing machine. You can sew it by hand. You could use a fusible web. You could use fabric glue. Really, there's a variety of different things that you can use to attach it. And you can also stitch it right on the item if you want. So that's a possibility as well. And Joanne says, do you ever make tension adjustments when stitching your lace? Me particularly, Joanne, I haven't had to. If you're using the same type of thread on the top and the bottom and the same weight, so the same color and the same weight, it kind of will do a little bit more of balancing. If you're using a matching bobbin thread, it's still going to look great on the back. So I don't normally adjust my tension for that, but I'm not saying that that's never the case. So if there is a case that you might need to adjust it, then that I guess is something that you certainly can do. So really good question. And then Kim says, can you design a curly Q with different satin widths in the fill area, fill center of the design? So can you design a the curly Q? I'm assuming you mean like the body of the freestanding lace butterfly. If you're referring to the body, you certainly could. I'll show you that over there. Maybe clarify if I didn't get it right, Kim Newell. If I did not understand your question right, if then definitely mention it again so that I make sure that I'm telling you the right thing or answering your question correctly. So let me go back over here and I will answer that question if it is correct, Kim. If you want to do like a little body here, you could use your freestanding or your drawing tools here. Sorry about that. So your artwork drawing tools, I would maybe do the ellipse and then just draw that body shape. And then you could fill that with the freestanding lace grid, or you could maybe go back into the design and look for something that maybe would resemble that, and you just put that in the center. So that's a possibility. So let me fill this with the grid, and I'll show you that. So if I fill this with the grid here, and I can actually change the density of that. So that density is the same as the density of my butterfly, but if I want it to look more like a fill stitch, I can actually increase the density here. So when you increase the number, it actually will space out your stitches because it's actually referring to the distance between the stitches. So if you want it to be more dense and look tighter, you want to lower this number. So if I lower this density number here and click apply, you can see that change on the screen there. Let me zoom in. And you can control that. And I can actually even reduce it more. Just know that, you know, it's going to be more dense. So, but you might want that look if you're trying to make that body of the butterfly. So let me turn that to a darker color. Go back to my select tool here. We could rotate that and put that right over. And then maybe if we're doing that, we don't want these pieces. Maybe they could be the antenna. How about that? Wouldn't that be cool? And so I could position that. And if you want to cut out this area, you're going to see that here just coming up in the next example that I show you. But you could mirror image these and get the look of the antenna with these rather than creating something from scratch. Look at that. So how cute would that be? I love it. So hopefully that's what Kim was referring to, but that's actually a really good example and a really good question. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to show you is let's talk about some other tools that we have here. And these tools that I'm about to show you, other than the lace grid and the elements, you can actually do these in other software. So I'm going to use my artwork tool, which is actually the same artwork tool in all Dime software. I'm going to choose the rectangle. And I'm going to click and drag, and it makes a rectangle for me. So the artwork tool is the same, so you can do that in any program. And notice I'm done, but it still has that box attached to my cursor. That means that without clicking anything, I could actually click and draw another box. Until I click away from this, like my select tool, it's going to let me keep drawing boxes. So I'm going to delete those last two. And for this, I'm going to make this a bookmark, and I want to make this about, let's say 6 inches in height and 2 inches wide. And I unchecked my maintain aspect ratio and click OK. And now remember my tip from several weeks ago, double click the zoom tool will bring everything so that it fits on your screen. So double click that zoom tool is something I use a lot. Okay, so we've got our shape. Remember that step number 1. Step number 2 is to fill that with our lace grid. And so I'm going to do this one with a border. So I'm going to click lace grid with border. And then let's select this and make it a lighter color so that we can see the elements on top of it. Now I want to make this as a bookmark, and I'm going to put some little designs here and a flower on the top. So I'm going to go to my design library, and let's go down to the paisley border, and I'm going to scroll down. There's a little design in here, this one right here. It kind of looks like a stylized heart to me. So if I rotate it around and we zoom in, I'll show you what I mean. So that kind of looks like a stylized heart, right? So I'm going to use that, but I'm going to put it on top of the lace grid. So I actually don't want the grid that's already in this design. So I've got my select tool. I'm going to click the ungroup option, and that ungroups my design. Over here in the sequence view, if you look down here to the bottom right where my mouse is blinking, and I click the plus, I can see all of the elements that make up this design. So let's watch our slow redraw. I'm going to skip past the pink really quickly because that's off screen. And the first thing that stitches, do you see, that's my lace grid of this design. Well, I don't want that and the actual grid that's on the bookmark. So I'm going to remove this grid. You could do that create whole again, but I'm just showing you something completely different that you could do. If you look in your sequence view, it has all of the elements that make up this design. So I can actually select just the complex fill over here in my list. And if I slide that out of the way, you can see that that's what I've selected. So I'm going to delete that. Press the delete on my keyboard. It's gone. I'm going to select my shape again, and I'm going to group that back together. Click my group. That way, every time I select it, it's going to stay together. So I'm going to resize it just slightly smaller, and I'm going to put that over here, and let's zoom back into our bookmark. Now I am going to, let's make that a darker pink so we can see it. I'm going to use my scatter tool. So this is a built-in tool into My Lace Maker. It's also part of Perfect Embroidery Pro. So this scatter tool is used the same way. So if you have it in your program, it works the same way. So I'm going to click scatter, and look what it does. It makes a bunch of copies, and it makes them random sizes and just flips them all around. So it's a really easy tool to fill up an area. Well, our bookmark doesn't need that many. So I'm going to put in the size of our bookmark, which was a 2. I unchecked the aspect ratio, 2:6. Click apply, and now it's only got a few in there. Every single time I click apply, it will re-randomize and give me a new set of designs. So if you like it, make sure you say okay. Even if you go back in and see if you can get another combination, make sure that you say okay if you like what you see. And look at that. It just flips them all around, giving me a different view of those hearts every time. Now, you can make these changes. The auto rotate, notice that it keeps all of the hearts upright. Auto resequence by color, that's going to put all of my hearts like colors together. Now I'm going to show you how you can make separate colors, so I'm going to leave that unchecked, but I do like them to rotate and flip around. The size limits, right now it will make a random copy that is 80% smaller and 150% larger than the original size design. So if you don't want your design to be resized, just put 100 and 100. And then every one of your hearts will remain the exact size that you selected. You can also change the distance between your hearts if you need to get a little bit more or fewer. I'm going to go back to the 80-150 though. I think that we got some good options with that. And then I'm just going to click apply. And actually I like that one, so I'm just saying okay. And look at that. I've got all of my little hearts all flipped around, and I can get that right there on my bookmark. Now, if you decided that you want one of these moved or in a different way, just ungroup it. When you ungroup, you can click and draw a box around this. And let me do an undo. So let me click and draw my box. And then I can select that one. I could go ahead and group that one so that it stays together, but then I could go ahead and rotate it manually or maybe move it out of the way if I want. Now, if you're selecting these and your grid keeps moving, remember you can go over here and you can lock that color. And now when I select this, it won't let me move, and I can drag around and make my adjustments if I want to. So that's an easy way to manipulate. So isn't that cute? Now, I actually was going to put something on the top. So if I click my library again and go back to the classic, there's this rose. That's one of the elements, and I can slide that up to the top. Now, remember, this element is freestanding lace by itself, so I don't have to worry about putting the grid behind it. As long as it's overlapped on my design, which it definitely is, it's going to hold to the main part of my bookmark. So, and you can have these all different colors if you like, or you can select everything, by doing a box around the entire design or Control A and change the color. But watch this. I'm going to change that to that darker pink. Notice that my background didn't change. Remember, I told you if you lock this item, it will not make any edits to it. That means it will also not even let you change the color of it. So you can stitch that as all one color. If you want to stitch it as separate colors, then your machine will stop if you make those separate colors like we had before here. So this design, let's make it a red rose here. And then I have a darker pink and a lighter pink. So then that means my embroidery machine is going to stop after each one to let me change the thread to a different color. If we watch our slow redraw, we've got the bookmark, those cute little stylized hearts, and then that rose at the top is how that's going to stitch out. The slow redraw is great to make sure that your order is good too, so you can always adjust that and change it. Now, if you did not want this part of the bookmark, let me select. So over here in my sequence view, I'm going to actually delete the, I'll select everything and delete here and just leave the rows. And the question that we had, are these freestanding in the library? And the answer is yes. So in one of the categories here, let me scroll down. I'm looking for something particular that I know is here, and that's these elements right here. This actually makes a really good border, and it also makes a really good bookmark. So do you see this shape here? It's freestanding. I don't have to do anything. So I could simply take this shape from the library and this shape from the library and just perch that on top. And now I can save that, and it's going to be a really nice bookmark design. If we watch the slow redraw, this was my point from earlier. Notice how the flower stitches first and then the bottom part, which kind of looks like lattice work to me that a rose vine would grow on. I might want my rose to actually be in the foreground, and my slow redraw shows that my rose is in the background. So if I click my select tool, it takes my slow redraw away. To reorder this, you simply select in your sequence view over here, the bottom right area where my cursor is blinking. You can click, hold, and drag and drop it onto another layer, and it will move that. So now you can see my roses on top and the lattice work is underneath. That's going to stitch first and then my rose shape. So that would make another really cute bookmark, right? So super cute. Now I've got one more example to show you before we go, but let's see if we have any questions on that. I just saw somebody said, so Joanne said a retreat would be fun. Yes, I agree. All retreats are fun, and especially sewing and embroidery treats as well. So let's see if we have any questions here. So Laura Park says, can you round the corners of the bookmark? Yes, we actually have a built-in design that's called a rounded rectangle. And you can use the rounded rectangle when you draw instead of the regular rectangle tool. So that's actually a really good question. So Kim Newell, thank you, Kim. She said you got it right. So we were talking about the body of the butterfly there. So thank you, Kim. And then Christine Russell says, I'd like to add lace to the bottom of a skirt or shirt, but it would need to stretch. If not, is there another way to do this? So the lace is not going to stretch. You would want to make sure that it is the width that it needs to be when the shirt is stretched out. So when you stitch your freestanding lace, you could stretch your garment to sew it on. And then when the garment is relaxed, the lace would not lay flat. That is one way to handle that, or stitch that on an area that doesn't stretch on your shirt. So that's actually a really good point. And I know there's elastic thread, but I've never actually tested that in freestanding lace. So maybe some of our other embroidery experts here, if you've ever stitched freestanding lace with elastic thread, I would love to hear that as well. And then Joanne says, I may have missed it, but did you talk about resizing? I did, Joanne. You can resize the designs in My Lace Maker. I just did that briefly on that butterfly designs, but yes, you can resize. It does recalculate the stitches. And so there's no issue whatsoever doing that. So, and then Dana says freestanding lace can be manipulated into open work. Yes, it absolutely can. So those elements that are built in to the design, you could combine those, make sure that they overlap, and not have that lace grid underneath, because the designs are also great freestanding on their own. So yes, you certainly could do that as well. Do you know when the Mac update will be available? I don't have any knowledge on that, Donna, at this time, but I know for a fact that they're working on it. And Kay says that last item, when the rose was on top, would look pretty as a bracelet. Oh, yes, it would. Very good point. I love that, Kay. Really good example. Okay, so now I see that we don't have any questions. I think I covered them all. If I missed any that are further back, feel free to ask again. I will not get offended if the question's asked more than once. I would rather answer than miss it. So let's go over. I want to show you another example. This is a little bit more like taking another step to another level, and that is using these built-in true type text. So the true type text that are built into the software, when you click it and you click one time on your screen, this drops a true type text. It is an artwork text. There are no stitches in this text. If you want to turn this into lace, the text is simply so that you can select your elements. Let's maybe just grab a couple to make a point here. The text is meant so that if you want to design right on top of it to get your own custom text, then you could choose your designs. Let me make this bigger first before I do that, because it's not very big on the screen. You can see I resize my element a lot, but you can choose designs that follow along your shapes to build your own true type text that is custom. So you could do this to make the T, and then maybe you want another piece down below. You could go in, look for a shape that would be nice for that bottom part to make the T. So the true type text that are built in, this is the primary use. It's a background so that you can then design text. Now you choose your true type text, and I'm going to delete this lace off of here. Your true type text can be edited the same exact way that other text in other Dime software. So if you have Dime software, the text all works the same. And when I select the text tool and I click on the text, you can see all these little shapes. Now we've talked about these in Word Art and Stitches a few weeks ago, so I won't go into a ton of detail. I just want you to know that each of these little shapes do something different. So you can make your text convex, concave. You can change the kerning. You can select one letter and just resize that one letter if you want. And when you select your text tool, you can, or your select tool, sorry, you can see I have that bounding box. If I want to go back and do those text specific editing, you want to go back to your text tool. And then when you click on your text, it'll give you those boxes back. So I'm going to undo, and I am just going to type in mom. So let's do mom and click OK. And then I'm going to squish my letters together so that they touch for this example. Now, first thing, I am using my kerning here. So if I slide these, I can get them close together. I just want them enough so that they overlap, just like that. And now I'm going to go back to my select tool. Let's go to our transform, which allows me to change my size, just like we did with our shapes. I'm going to put this as, and actually it's not too far off. I made my other bookmark a 2 inches wide by 6 inches high. And this is the opposite direction since it's horizontal. So I'm going to do 6 by 2 and then click apply for my text. Okay. Now I want to have the shape of this MOM, and I want to fill that with text. So I'm going to use my create outline tool. If I do a right mouse click, under utility, I have a create outline and a create border. If I do the create outline, it's going to give me artwork. Here, I can set the distance. Now, I want it to follow exactly on the letters. So I'm going to put this down to 0 and click preview. And you can see that dark line that's now tracing around my letters. This is why I overlapped it, because I wanted one solid outline around this entire design. And I'm going to click OK. And then I've got 2 things on the screen. Let me change my artwork to a different color. I'm going to change it maybe to purple. And so you can hide this text. So I'm going to hide this, and that's what I'm left with. And in fact, I'm going to unhide, and I'm actually going to just delete mom because I don't need it anymore for what we're doing. So there's my artwork. If you look over here in my sequence view, it is not stitches, it's just artwork. So remember, that's our first step, is to choose our shape. So I created the shape. Next thing, I'm going to fill it with the lace grid. I'm going to choose the one that has the border around it. Is that not cute already? And I'm going to change the color of both. I'm going to select the grid and the outline. And now for the center here, I'm going to put a heart there. So I'm going to, from my artwork tools where we chose that rectangle, and here's the rounded rectangle when we were talking about the curved corners there. Rounded rectangle, and I'm going to do the heart. Okay, I'm going to click and drag to make my heart. I'm going to go over here in the artwork settings and choose fill, just because I want you to be able to see it easier on the screen. So there's my heart. I'm going to put it over the center here. And if you want it a little bit bigger, you could always resize it, get it looking like you like. And then let's make it red. Well, because that's what I think of when I think of a heart. Now, do you remember what I said in the beginning where I said it was the artwork that created the hole in this shape? So I want to keep this artwork. I want one artwork to be filled with the lace grid, and I want to keep this artwork so it will cut the hole. So first of all, let's select this artwork and select our lace grid. I've got my control key. See how my plus sign popped up there? And I've got just the heart artwork and just the lace grid, and that illuminates my create hole. If I click away, do you see how create hole is unavailable? I select artwork and I select a grid, and it becomes available. And then I can click and it will cut out that heart shape. So now if I move this out of the way, there's my hole. But I want lace on top of that. So I'm going to leave that heartwork shape right where it is. And I'm going to do the same thing and just click my lace grid and look at that. Wouldn't that be a cute bookmark for mom for Mother's Day? So isn't that really fun? So that's a little bit more advanced than just getting started. I would say the butterfly is super easy, or taking elements and making a design, but you can do so much more with My Lace Maker. And remember that create outline feature that I showed you, and the artwork tools and the scatter tool, those actually work in other Dime software. It's this lace grid and the lace elements that are specific to this program that I was using today. So hopefully that helps you all get started. Let's see if there are any last comments, and then I can tell you what you can expect from me in 2 weeks from now on the next software success. So Jennifer Alexander, thank you for joining, Jennifer. She is a frequent flyer of our Dime lessons and our events. So we thank you so much for your support. So couldn't you have selected the rows and clicked to bring it to front? Absolutely. You sure could have. There are so many ways to do things in our software, and it really just depends on which one you want to use. But absolutely, there's a bring to front option that you could have clicked and it would have pulled it right to the front of everything. Good point. Okay, let's see if we have any other questions here. And Dana says, I love the Embrilliant software. Does My Lace Maker work by itself without needing any other software? It absolutely does, Dana. So the My Lace Maker, and actually all Dime software, all will run standalone without any other Dime program. So absolutely. And My Lace Maker, this is sold primarily through our dealers. So if you have a local dealer that sells Dime software, I definitely would check with them on the purchase first, because a lot of times they can give you an even better price. So so check with your local Dime dealer. And then Vicky W says, does the software automatically create enough overlap for the heart so it'll be part of mom? Yes, it absolutely does. Whenever you do that create hole feature, it does leave part of your grid under the edges so that it will all hold everything together. That's a really good question. So okay, any other questions before we go? Type them now or forever hold your peace. And then let me head over and I'll show you I have a quick slide that just is a visual. So these are the things that we created. How cute and how fun, right? So you can play with your My Lace Maker and make the same things. Also, in 2 weeks, so May 16th, I will be back for another software success, and we will continue with My Lace Maker, but we're going to go in more depth. We're going to use custom shaped designs with an image. We're going to import an image, and I can show you how to trace and convert that to your embroidery grid. We're also going to talk about using third-party artwork. I have tons of built-in artwork in My Lace Maker that we can choose that shape, but you can actually import artwork that you may already own. If you have any SVG files or other vector files, those can be imported into My Lace Maker so that you can turn them into freestanding lace. And then I'll also show you some of our shapes that we can do in multiple colors. So I see a couple of questions popping up that I want to make sure to answer before we go. So let's make sure we get those answered. And so Vicky says, does the software automatically create enough overlap? Always answer that already. Sorry, Vicky. Yes, it does create enough overlap. So that was actually a really great question. And then Dana says, where do you find a local dealer? If you go to our webpage, dzgns.com, and scroll all the way to the bottom, Dana, you'll see a dealer locator link, and that will allow you to put in your zip code, and you can see if you can find a dealer there. So check there, and then if not, you can look for the software on our site as well. But I can, like I said, the dealer is probably going to give you the best deal. So. And then where can I see the last patch software? So the patch maker software, I'm assuming is what you're talking about, Palma. The patch maker software, again, I would check with your local dealer. And I have not done a software success on patch and applique maker, but that will be coming up soon. I will go through every dime software, and then we will rotate through them again so that we can keep learning every single piece. Some of the features that you saw here today, like the create outline and also using the artwork tool, are in the patch and applique maker. So it's always easy to learn when we're doing some of those common designs or common things in the software. But we will do patch and applique maker eventually as I get through all of the pieces. So, and then Facebook user, not sure the name, but is there a button to push to add an eyelet to the design? You don't have a button to push. What you would do is create a circle and turn that into the steel stitch, which is one of the options on the toolbar there. And that will turn that into a an eyelet for you. So if I head back over, I'll show you that really quickly. So like this might be a cute little ornament even. And if we want to add our eyelet here, you could click to draw a circle. To draw the ellipse, if you want the ellipse to be a perfect circle, hold down your shift key, or I'm sorry, your control key. Let me undo that. Your control key, and it will leave that as a perfect circle. So draw your circle and then click this option here for a steel stitch, and that will convert that. And if you overlap this, you can have that as an eyelet. So maybe we would want to do that here. I delete my circle. Now, one thing I will point out here, let me turn off my 3D, and I'm going to zoom in. Do you see this gap here? When this stitches, this eyelet, it has to start and stop somewhere. And where it starts and stops, it does not hold together if it's not on something. So what I usually do is that part of my eyelet, I rotate around so that it is 100% sure to work and not fall apart. So I usually rotate that around till it's on my design. If you were to put this eyelet over top of your grid, you're not going to have that issue. It's just if you want it freestanding. This is just a satin steel stitch. So you want to make sure that that part is overlapped on your design. So hopefully that helps. All right, guys. So join me in 2 weeks on May 16th for more of My Lace Maker. But remember, we cover a lot of things that also work in other dime software. So I can't wait to see you on May 16th for My Lace Maker.